Hi, I am Charlene Martin. I teach English at the high school level, mostly 10th and 11th grade. And a few years ago, I had started a process of working with my kids on book trailers, and they became really excited, and I noticed they were reading more, they were talking about books more, and so I wanted to keep the momentum going, and I wanted something that would step it up a little bit, maybe move away from Animoto and some of those programs that give them a cookie cutter method for producing a video that would move really quickly and sometimes therefore be very choppy and not contain a lot of content. So I wanted to showcase their work with them actually filming themselves, playing the roles of characters from the books and so forth. But this group wasn't as engaged in that process as the previous years. So I ended up switching from Scan, Watch, Read to Snap, Share, Read. So I started at the beginning with polling my students using Google Forms, trying to gauge their interest because they came in at the beginning of the year, and this is overwhelmingly a group, both 10th and 11th grade, who kept saying, I hate to read, I don't want to read, don't make me read a book. And of course they didn't want to read anything that I chose or that I suggested to them, and I really needed a way to get them invested in the process of sharing ideas. These are the books that are popular, but these are the things that I've read, and this is why I like it. So if you notice, those same kids who say, I never read, I don't like to read, look at the numbers as to how many students reported that they read for pleasure on a daily basis. And then look at the number who say, I do not read at all. Very close. And both of those are the majority. You know, I don't think that most of the kids are not reading at all for pleasure. I think that there are things that they're reading that they do not call reading for pleasure. They're not reading novels necessarily, but there are other things that I could use to reach them. So that was the challenge. How do I reach out and just engage them in the process? And then over on the other side, how many books have you read for pleasure in the past year? 40% of students report not reading a book at all for pleasure, and 39.1 say they read 1 to 3 books. The problem often is, how do you find students books that will engage them? So how do you hook them up with just the right book to get them excited? And on polling again, I saw 58.1% said if someone recommends it to me or if I hear someone else talking about it, that gets me excited. And then the number drops a little bit to browsing books in a library, a bookstore, or online. Students who do not necessarily read for pleasure reported the same thing. They want to hear other people talk about books and recommend. So I really thought that was the way to engage them, but I needed to get them talking. Some of the research findings I've included, the process for implementation in the beginning, the plan that I had was to use 5 iPod Touches that were purchased through the program, and I wanted to have students film their own really good quality book trailers and then create QR codes and include them in the library books in the library so that kids could come through, scan it, watch the video in order to choose their books. Yeah, that was a great idea, but it comes with its own set of problems. QR codes were sometimes difficult to develop. There are lots of little quirks with them that I wasn't as aware of before the kids became exposed to them. I had just a few really quality videos that I would think this is something that would engage someone else. Many times as they watch in class, they start to nod off, which is not a good sign. So in looking at all the problems that I was having with implementation, and most of that comes through the time. I'm devoting a lot of time to them developing videos, and whereas that may be a good skill to develop, I could not justify using that much class time to produce them. So I went back to the drawing board, looked at the original purpose, which was to engage them, create that motivation to read, and have them share ideas with each other. In polling them, I'm looking at what they are also already naturally engaged in, which of course is social media. 98.8% reported using social media, with 86.6% using Snapchat most often. So I wanted to find a way to incorporate what they were already doing and what already excited them. And so I piggybacked onto this idea that I saw on Twitter by Tara Martin called Book Snaps. And the book snaps involve students reading at the time actively, and when they come to a certain part of the book that they find to be engaging for whatever reason, they snap a picture of the text, and then they add a caption box in order to interact with that and talk about a moment that hooked them in the book or a moment that they could associate with in some way. It reminded them of something in their own lives. And what I got actually really surprised me. I found more depth and insight coming from just little caption boxes that only required them a few seconds of their time, as opposed to what I would get out of a book trailer, which would not include the personalization. So I have lots of book snaps coming in from students who say things like, this character had a moment with her father where they were reading a story together, and it reminded me of my childhood, and I miss the days when my father just curled up with me and read a book. You know, there were times I would literally be in tears. And I'm getting these as, you know, the Snapchat book snaps. I'm getting it all through the day. So sometimes between class periods, I would pull them up and start checking what people were sending so that I could talk about them as they came into class. And then I found I had to stop doing that because I would be crying when they came into the room. And, you know, they were surprised. Miss Martin, it's just a book snap. There really isn't anything to it. It's like, yes, it is. You know, you've made such a connection with this. So I don't know that it sustained itself. Initially, they were really excited. They loved the idea that I was using something that they already loved. So I'm using Snapchat, and I'm not making them write dialectical journals. I'm not making them write chapter summaries. I'm asking them to do something that was authentic to them and that did not require a lot of their time. And that was the heart of motivation for them. But I need to find more strategies that will engage them, requiring a little time, but with high impact. So that's still the challenge going forward. Did you enjoy the book that you read? I asked them. 89.1% said yes. You know, the kids who said, I don't like to read. I don't want to read anything. Did you enjoy creating the book snaps? Enjoyed it. Look at that, 50.9%. I enjoyed it better than other things. 34.5% said yes, 14.5% said absolutely not, did not enjoy it. Did you enjoy looking at other people's book snaps? And then here's the key. If they're not looking at other people's, then are they really sharing the ideas? And so the numbers were not as promising there. Didn't really look at other people's book snaps at all, 32.7%. 60% did say yes, but is that, again, going to be sustained over a long period of time? Outcome. Did you become interested in someone else's book because of the book snaps? 63.6% said no. Did you decide to read a book because of someone else's book snaps? 87.3% no. But then look what happened when we started getting into groups and they started sharing the ideas. 35.7% said no, but 64.3% said yes, that's what hooked me. That's when I became interested. So it still all goes back to the idea from that initial poll. I want to hear other people get excited about it and tell me about it, and then that's what's going to interest me. Student feedback, I couldn't include a lot of stuff, so I got, of course, the highlights, which will be more positive, but I did have kids who said, well, it was better than many other things I've had to do with the book before. The comment book snaps are really unique. They're a fun way of interacting with the book. I liked book snaps because they're creative, and it was fun to see the other book snaps that people create. I got a lot of that. The kids who really wanted to engage in something more creative, they initially hooked onto this really well. And so then you see some of the samples that they have done, and this one with, you know, the great appropriate message for school-initiated people. That was her connection. She said, I felt like the character didn't really like school, and I often feel like I don't like school, and because of that, I feel like it's a book that's more relevant to what I'm going through, and I want to see how that pans out for a character. So that's my idea, and going forward, I hope to just simply find other ways of engaging students in a more meaningful process.